All right, all right. Shalom, everybody. Shalom. Once again, you with your brew. That's me, Ban Shemayim. I just want to say thank y'all for tuning in. Hit that like button and subscribe if you're not subscribed. And let's talk about this in the comments. So this video, I didn't forget about you. Sincerely, I did not forget about you. I watched your video a couple weeks ago, but I wasn't in the best shape, and there was actually quite a bit I had to do, which wasn't furthering helping me get in the best shape neither. So I watched your video. So today we're gonna go to the video he sent me. It's by John Jacob, Enoch. It's a book against Enoch by Sincere Lee. Without further ado, or it's a video about against Enoch by John Jacob that I was prescribed to look at by Sincere Lee. So this is going to be my response to it. Without further ado, let's get it, y'all. Let's get it.
Chapter 6. And it came to pass, when the children of men had multiplied, that in those days were born unto them beautiful and comely daughters. And the angels, the children of the heaven, saw and lusted after them, and said to one another, Come, let us choose us wives from among the children of men, and beget us children. And Semjaza, who was their leader, said unto them, I fear ye will not indeed agree to do this deed, and I alone shall have to pay the penalty of a great sin. And they all answered him and said, Let us all swear an oath, and all bind ourselves by mutual imprecations, not to abandon this plan, but to do this thing. Then sware they all together, and bound themselves by mutual imprecations upon it. And there were in all 200 who descended in the days of Jared on the summit of Mount Hermon. And they called it Mount Hermon because they'd sworn and bound themselves by mutual imprecations upon it. Chapter 8. And Azazel taught men to make swords and knives and shields and breastplates, and made known to them the metals of the earth and the art of working them.
Chapter 6. And it came to pass, when men began to multiply on the face of the earth, and daughters were born unto them, and Lamech took unto him 2 wives. The name of one was Ada, and the name of the other Zillah. And Ada bare Jebal. He was the father of such as dwell in tents, and of such as have cattle. And his brother's name was Jubal. He was the father of all such as handle the harp and organ. And Zillah, she also bare Tubal-Cain, an instructor of every artificer in brass and iron. And the sister of Tubal-Cain was Neamah.
Okay. We gonna get into it because this thing that he's doing, trying to make a point, is really not making a point. So without further ado, let's get into it. This one's for you, Sincerely. If you're watching, hopefully you peep this. So to start off, we going back into Numbers 13, so we could go over the Giants thing, because that's another thing that they use to say, because the Giants were so tall. So let's just go over this, right? Numbers 13 and 30. And Caleb stilled the people before Moses and said, Let us go up at once and possess it. for we are all able to overcome it. It says, but the men that went up with him said, we will not be able to go up against the people, for they are stronger than we. And they brought up an evil report of the land, which they had searched unto the children of Israel, saying, why? So it says, which they had searched. And if you see, it says to seek, spy out, explore. So they went to peep what the enemies might be like, right? Saying the land through which we have gone to search it, it is a land eaten up, right? To eat. The inhabitants to sit, remain, dwell, meaning that these people eat people, right? And all the people that we saw in it are men of great stature, right? It says, and there we saw the giants. Now this is crazy because it says giants, Nephilim, right? Giants, name of two peoples, one before the flood and one after. So this kind of links to Enoch. One after, these are the ones after the flood, right? The sons of Anak, which come of the giants. Like it says again, once again, giants, names of two peoples, one before the flood and one after the flood. And we were in our own sight as grasshoppers. So look at that. It says, so we were in an eye. So like through our eyes, right, as grasshopper, locust grasshoppers, right, in an eye. So it's like in our eye, we thought we were as small as locusts or grasshoppers, which that explained why they said giants would have been the equivalent of 400, I think it was 3,000 eels, which is like 450 feet, right? So just to get that out the way. Second, let's go into chapter 8 and go over what it was saying in the book of Enoch, right? It says, moreover, Azazel taught men to make swords, knives, shields, breastplates, and fabrications of mirrors and workmanships of bracelets and ornaments, to the use of paint, the beautifying of eyebrows, and the use of stones of every valuable and select kind, and all of the sorts of dyes, so that the world became altered, right? Impiety increased, fornication multiplied, and they transgressed and corrupted all their ways. This is important that we go over all of this part too, because now we're about to get into Genesis. This is the Genesis he went into, right? In where he brought up Cain and how Cain knew how to do the thing. But what he don't understand, or what he's not bringing up, the guy who made the video is not bringing up. Obviously, he didn't talk in the video at all. But the point he's not bringing up is this is the descendants of Cain. So this would have been the time of the multiplying of man, and we're going to prove that. It says, this proves it right here, the descendants of Cain, yet it only talks about Lamech, right? And Seth and Enosh, right? And then it goes into Seth and Enosh. It don't really go into all of the children of Cain, which there was a bunch, and we're going to prove that as well. It says, and Cain knew his wife, and she conceived and bare Enoch, and he builded a city and called the city in the name. First off, this Enoch is not the Enoch who wrote the book of Enoch. Enoch is the seventh son of Adam, not the son of Cain. Cain was kicked out. Let's go over that. We're going to go up Genesis 4 and 9. And the Lord said unto Cain, where is Abel thy brother? See, so we're not talking about the same Enoch. So you can't get misled by people because they're not putting things into context. And we're going to put it into context. And he said, I know not. Am I my brother's keeper? And he said, what hast thou done? The voice of thy brother's blood crieth unto me from the ground. And now art thou cursed from the earth, which hath opened her mouth to receive thy brother's blood from thy hand. When thou tillest the ground, it shall not henceforth yield unto thee her strength. A fugitive and a vagabond shalt thou be in the earth. And Cain said unto the Lord, my punishment is greater than I can bear. Behold, thou hast driven me out this day from the face of the earth, and from thy face shall I be hid. Right? So he was no longer with the rest of the people, which was Cain, Eve, Adam, Eve, and then eventually they had their son Seth, right? Which it goes into at the end of this. It says, Behold, thou hast driven me out this day from the face of the earth, and from the face shall I be hid, and I shall be a fugitive and a vagabond in the earth. And it shall come to pass that everyone that findeth me shall slay me. And people always say, who was there to find him? Angels. Angels was on the earth before we were. Angels were here. And we're going to prove that through some other books. Let's get it. It says, and the Lord said unto him, therefore whosoever slayeth Cain, right, to kill Cain, vengeance shall be taken on him sevenfold. And the Lord set a mark upon Cain, lest any find him and should kill him. And it's funny because we're going to go into how Cain died, since he brought up, he the one brought it up in the video. And Cain went out from the presence of the Lord and dwelt in the land of Nod, on the east of Eden. And Cain knew his wife, and she conceived and bare Enoch. And he builded a city, and called the name of the city after his son Enoch. And unto Enoch was born Irad, and Irad begot Methujael, and Methujael begot Methusalah, right? Methusalah, right? And Methusalah begot Lamechek, and Lamechek took unto his 2 wives, right? So when we get down to Lamechek, these are the children. These are already women being born. Think about it. Lamechek took unto him 2 wives, not 1 wife. So that meant that there was an abundance of women. And Lamechek took unto him 2 wives, and the name of one was Adah, and the name of the other was Zillah. And Adah bare Jabal, and he was the father of such as dwell in tents, and of such have cattle, and of such as have cattle. And his brother name was Jubal. He was the father of all such as handle the harp and the organ. And Zillah, she also bare Tubal-Cain, the instructor of every artificer in brass and iron. And the sister of Tubal-Cain was Naamah. And Lamechek said unto his wives, Adah and Zillah, hear my voice, ye wives of Lamechek. Now it's funny because Lamechek was the children of Cain. So let's go right back into this book of Enoch real quick, because it goes down here and shows that that was taught as well, right? And Mazarach taught sorceries in the dividers of roots. Amaras taught the solution of sorcery. Barakal taught the observers of the stars. Akabiel taught signs. Temiel taught astronomy. And Azaradael taught the motion of the moon. And man began destroying and cried out, and their voice reached to heaven. So we know this scripture that guy went to is talking about Cain's children. And watch, it says, for I have slain a man to my wounding, a young man to my hurt. If Cain shall be avenged sevenfold, truly, Lamech 70 and sevenfold, right? It says, and Lamech said unto his wife, Adah and Zillah, hear my voice, ye wives of Lamech. Hearken unto my speech, for I have slain a man to my wounding. We're going to get into that. We're going to get into what that's talking about in a few of these other books, but I got to prove a point really quick before we go to these other books. And a young man to my hurt. If Cain shall be avenged sevenfold, truly, Lamech 70 in sevenfold, right? So 77 times over. And Adam knew his wife again. So, right, so these people were separated. Remember, Cain were kicked away from the land that Adam was in. These were the men, these were the people which were the reason that the flood happened. When it talked about the giants and the Nephilim and the women being slept with, these were the people. Let's keep going. And Adam knew his wife again, and she bare a son, and called his name Seth. For God said, she hath appointed me another seed instead of Abel, whom Cain slew. See, so Cain slew Abel. Into Seth, to him also there was born a son, and he called his name Enos. Then he began men to call upon the name of the Lord. right? So we know that Seth and Enosh were under God's covenant, and Cain's children were kicked out of God's covenant. So let's go into this to see if it talks about what they created and what they built. And then we're going to go into why that's like that, right? It says, this is the book of Genesis of Adam. In the day that God created man, in the likeness of God, in the likeness of God made he him. Male and female created he them, and blessed them, and called their name Adam. In the day, see, and that shows that Adam was the completion, like that man wasn't complete without Eve, right? In the day when they were created, and Adam lived 130 years and begot a son in his own likeness, his image, he called his name Seth, right? So it goes, because Cain was already pushed away from him, the evil seed, right? The cursed seed. And Seth was the next legacy. That's where Enoch comes from, is from Seth. Let's prove it. In the days of Adam, after he had begotten Seth, were 800 years, and he begot sons and daughters. And all the days that Adam lived were 930 years, and he died. And Seth lived 105 days, or 105 years, and begot Enos. And Seth lived after he begot Enos 807 years, and begot sons and daughters. And all the days of Seth were 912 years. Right? So let's keep going. Enos lived 90 years, begot Canaan. Let's drop down, right? It says 815 years and begot sons and daughters, right? It says, and Canaan lived 70 years and begot Mahalalel, right? Mahalalel, right? Mahalalel. And Mahalalel lived 65 years and begot Jared, right? Because remember, Enoch said it was during the time of Jared, right? And we're going to go and prove this in another book. During the time of Jared is when the angels came down and laid with the women. So that would explain why which it took Adam more years to have Seth. Cain had his children, and Lamech, and Lamech had a bunch of children. So it would explain that all of these generations later, right, after Seth, after Enos, and we talking about 900 years, you know what I'm saying, before they were having children, or I mean, you know, and Canaan lived 70 years, right? So 70 years and begot Mathael, but Enos had already lived 90 years, and then he begot Canaan. And Seth lived 105 years and begot Enos. So we talking about multiple generations. If we go to the book of Enoch once again, let's go to it. I think that's Enoch 6. I don't know if I feel like going to that. I'm going to go to it anyways. Okay. Because the thing I didn't want to do is be bouncing around trying to find out where it was at. Oh, that was in Genesis, wasn't it? Let's go to it, right? Let's go to Genesis and see if that's in Genesis. Let's go to Genesis 6, right? And it came to pass when man began to multiply on the face of the earth, and the daughters were born unto him, that the sons of God saw the daughters of the man, that they were fair, and took them wives, in all which they chose. And the Lord said, my spirit will not always strive with man, for that he is flesh, yet his days shall be 120 years, right? There were giants in the earth in those days, meaning the giants were already born in that time, which means that they would have been generations have passed since they were born. So when you brought up, and also after that, when the sons of God came unto the daughters of man, and they bare children unto him, the same became mighty men, which were of old, men of renown, right? So this is not just in Noah's time. And Noah's time was the end. This is actually speaking of before Noah's time. So let's go back to Genesis 4 real quick. So during Genesis 4, these generations were the generations that the angels came and laid with. And the fact that he went to the descendants of Cain. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to go into some sacredtext.com, right? Let's go into this so we could get a brief history. I would advise everybody to go read this for themselves, right? Right. So after the death of Adam and Eve, Seth severed his children and his children's children from Cain's children, right? So they weren't, Seth and Cain's children weren't mixed, like I said, right? Cain and his seed went down and dwelt westward, below the place where he had killed his brother Abel. But Seth and his children dwelt northwards upon the mountain of the cave of treasures, which that's also in the Bible where it talks about the cave of treasures, in order to be near to their father Adam. And Seth the elder, tall and good, with a fine soul and of a strong mind, stood at the head of his people. So Seth was the elder of his people, right? Intended them in innocence, penitence, and meekness, and did not allow one of them to go down to Cain's children. Why was that? Because Cain's children, the ones he went into, who he was talking about mixing and mashing, creating, being artificers and things like that, Cain's children were already mixing and mashing with Satan. They were down there with the angels. And the angels went against God. People remember, because people want to use Satan, but remember, Satan is still attacking the earth. Satan was kicked from the heaven, and then when Christ died, Satan was kicked from being able to go down into hell, that dimension. So now, like it says in Revelation, Satan is on earth to make war against the woman seed who bore the child, right? And he knows he has a very short time. This is the only place Satan is now, is on earth. All the angels that slept with women at the very beginning, if we're going to use what Enoch says, were all bound. They were bound in what we call hell or Hades. They were bound for punishment forever. Enoch, they sent Enoch to plead with God, and God said, no, you shouldn't, man shouldn't be pleading for you, but you should be pleading for God, man, right? So let's keep going. It says, for they continued in praises to God in the sign. Wait, it says, because of their own purity, they were named, right? So let's go. It says, and did not allow one of them to go down to Cain's children, but because of their own purity, they were named children of God. And they were with God. See, so they were on the mountain separated until the time of Enoch. He was the first one who actually went down the mountain, not Cain's child Enoch. Let's go back into Genesis real quick so we could get where Enoch was. Okay, here we go. And Jared lived 162 years, and he begot Enoch. See, so this is not the same Enoch from Genesis 4. Okay? These were the children of Seth. Genesis 4 is the children of Cain, the one who mixed with the angels, right? And it says that Enoch lived 65 years and begot Methuselah, and Enoch walked with God after he begot Methuselah. And that's literally what the book of Enoch is about. It's about right before Enoch left, Enoch walked with God and learned all of this information, and God told him to leave a book behind for the people, which is crazy because you cannot follow the biblical calendar without the book of Enoch unless you follow in the calendar they created for us, right? It says Methuselah lived 300 years and begot sons and daughters, and all the days of Enoch were 365 years, and Enoch walked with God, and he was not, for God took him, right? So like it explains in the book of Enoch, God took him up into the heavens. So let's go back up to where we were at, right? Which was it? Okay, this was it. It says, but because of their own purity, now these are Seth's children, remember, that Enoch, not the first Enoch, not the one in Genesis 4, the second one, all of those children, not Lamech's children, Those children weren't part of this, right? It says, but because of their own purity, they were named children of God, and they were with God instead of the host of the angels who fell, right? So this is proof. Cain's children were what? With the host of the angels who fell. That's why there was a separation. So the people he was mentioning, who he's saying built the things, and the guys in the video is kind of trying to say Enoch's a lie, like Enoch it off because it's a lie. It's so crazy that we use so much time trying to disprove and instead of trying to understand, right? It says, and they were with God, and instead of the host of angels who fell. So we were with God. Seth's children were with God instead of with the host of angels who fell, which were that's where Cain's children was. They were with the host of angels who fell. Right? It says, for they continued in praises to God and in singing psalms unto him in their cave, the cave of treasures. It says, then Seth stood before the body of his father Adam and of his mother Eve and prayed night and day and asked for mercy towards himself and his children, and that when he had some difficulty dealing with the child, he would give him counsel. But Seth and his children did not like earthly work, right? Let's get why. See, so those tools that were made, Seth and his children didn't have those, right? It says, but Seth and his children did not like earthly work, but gave themselves to heavenly things. For they had no other thought than praising, doxologies, and psalms unto God, right? It says, therefore did they at all times hear the voices of the angels, like it had just mentioned up there, right? Because they were with God, and the angels that are with God always hear the voice of God, and they hear each other, right? For Seth and his children by wait, it says, therefore did at all times hear the voice. Therefore did they at all times hear the voices of the angels, praising and glorifying God from within the garden, or when they were sent by God on an errand, or when they were going up to heaven, right? So God was directly instructing Seth's children. Cain's children were being instructed by the fallen angels. Now let's go into a little bit of proof on that, right? Because what happened is this guy will run into somebody who will bring up this book right here, the Pyramid Text, right? One of the oldest religious texts ever founded, right? The Pyramid Texts are a collection of funerally inscriptions written on the walls of the 9th, 5th, and 6th dynasty pyramids, generally dated around 2350 before Christ, right? The earliest known version of the text is from the pyramids of Unas, but it's generally thought that the texts were already very old at that time, right? And like, I just want to come down so people could see this. You could get the translation of them, and this is what a lot of these Afrocentric people be using. They say, well, this book is older than the Bible. And a lot of the things the Bible say in it, this book has in it. And you will get lost by those people and won't have ground to stand on because you will lack the knowledge of the history of this time. See, during this time, these were Cain's children. Cain's children are the ones who built the pyramids. They had the better stuff as far as physical things. As we reading right here, Seth's children didn't need that because Seth's children were able to just sing and dance, right? And praise God. That's what they did. It says, but Seth and his children did not like earthly work. So they didn't like building and making things, creating things, right? But gave themselves to heavenly things. For they had no other thought than praises, doxologies, and psalms unto God, right? It says, for Seth and his children, by reason of their own purity, heard and saw those angels. Then again, the garden was not far above them, right? Because they were by the mountain of treasures. They was right to the east of the garden where Adam was kicked out. That was the first cave he went into. It says, but only some 15 spiritual cubits, right? It says, not one spiritual cubit answers to the 3 cubits of a man, although 45 cubits. My bad, y'all. I got a phone call. Hopefully, it's not important because I got to finish this, right? It says, now once, not, now it says, Seth and his children dwelt on the mountain below the garden. They sowed not, right? Neither did they reap. They wrought no food for the body, not even wheat, but only offerings. They ate of the fruit of the trees, well flavored, that grew on the mountain where they dwelt. You see, so when he's talking about who was building these things, of course, it wasn't Seth's children. And you bringing that up don't mean that Cain's children weren't mixing with the giants, because they were. That's why Seth's children were separated from them. We're going to go back into that really quick, right? Then Seth, it says, they were happy, innocent, without sudden fear. Wait, my bad. It says, then Seth often fasted every 40 days, and did also his eldest children. For the family of Seth smelled the smell of the trees in the gardens when the wind blew that way. It says they were happy, innocent, without sudden fear. There was no jealousy, no evil action, no hatred among them. There was no animal passion. From no mouth among them went forth earlier foul words or curses. Right? So they weren't, the way we behave, we're taking on the spirit of Cain's children, the spirit of the old world. Just like Christ said, it'd be like Noah's time. We're not taking on the spirit of Seth's children, right? Because it says they were happy, innocent, without sudden fear. There was no jealousy, no evil action, no hatred among them. There was no animal passion. From no mouth among them went forth either foul words or curse. Neither evil counsel nor fraud. For the men of that time never swore, but under hard circumstances, when man must swear, they swore by the blood of Abel the just. It says, but they constrained their children and their women every day in the cave to fast and to pray and to worship the Most High God. They blessed themselves in the body of their father Adam and anointed themselves with it. And they did so until the end of Seth drew near. Right? So this is talking about Seth's time. Now let's go up real quick so we can go over what we were talking about earlier, right? It says, but because of their own purity, they were named the children of God, and they were with God instead of the host of angels who fell. So if Seth's children were separated from Cain's children, they was with God, just proving the point, then who was Cain's children with? Those people he named who made those first inventions out of the Bible. That's not a lie. Two things can be true at once. And it's understanding the context of these things. We trip over ourselves sometimes trying to be too smart instead of just trying to understand, right? Instead of the host of angels who fell. For they continued in praises to God and singing psalms unto him in their cave, the cave of treasures. Now let's keep going. We'll go to 2, right? But Seth abode in the cave of treasures a few days and then suffered sufferings unto death. So he got sick, right? Then Enos, his firstborn son, came to him with Canaan, his son, and Methalel, Canaan's son, and Jared, the son of Methalel, and Enoch, Jared's son, with their wives and children to receive a blessing from Seth. Then Seth prayed over them and blessed them and adjured them by the blood of Abel the just, saying, I beg of you, my children, not to let one of you go down from this holy and pure mountain. See, they were holy and pure. The rest of the earth was being defiled by the angels who had fallen, like it just said in the previous scripture, right? Make no fellowship with the children of Cain, the murderer and the sinner, who killed his brother. For ye know, O my children, that we flee from him and from all his sin with all our might, because he killed his brother Abel. After having said this, Seth blessed Enos, his firstborn son, and commanded him habitually to minister in purity before the body of our father Adam all the days of his life. Then also to go at times to the altar which he Seth had built, and commanded he and Seth, I'm assuming that's what it's saying. He Seth had built, and he commanded him to feed his people in righteousness, in judgment, in purity, all the days of his life. Then the limbs of Seth were loosened, and his hands and feet lost all power. His mouth became dumb and unable to speak, and he gave up the ghost and died. And after his 912th year, on the 27th day of the month of Abib, Enoch being then 20 years old, right? So all of this is around the time of Enoch when the giants were there. It says, then they wound up carefully the body of Seth and embalmed him with sweet spices and laid him in the cave of treasures on the right side of our father's Adam's body. And they mourned for him 40 days. They offered gifts for him, and they had done as they had done for our father Adam. And after the death of Seth, Enos rose at the head of his people, whom he fed in righteousness and judgment, as his father had commanded him. But by the time Enos was 820 years old, Cain had a large progeny, right? So Cain's children was big. There was a huge amount of children, right? For they married frequently. See, so they had enough women. They married frequently, like we mentioned in that scripture. He had 2 wives, right? Lamech had 2 wives, right? Frequently, being given to animal lust, unto the land below the mountains was filled with them. See, because Genesis is the first 2,500 years of man. So you have to go into books like this. Books like the Book of Jubilee, like the Book of Yasher, like the Book of Enoch, so you could get the full timeline of what was happening during that time. Because the Book of Enoch is the first 2,500 years, but it's one book. It's just one book, right? Now let's go to the next one, right? In those days lived Lamech, right? Let's go down to Lamech, because that's what we was mentioning, right? The blind, who was of the sons of Cain. He had a son whose name was Atun, and they two had much cattle, right? But Lamech was in the habit of sending them to feed with a younger shepherd who tended them, and who, when coming home in the evening, wept before his grandfather and before his father Atun and his mother Hazianah, and said to them, as for me, I cannot feed those cattle alone, lest one rob me of some of them, or kill me for the sake of them. For among the children of Cain there was much robbery, murder, and sin. Wait. Let's go back to the book of Enoch real quick. Where was it at? Right here. Enoch 8, because what did it say? It says, moreover, Azazel taught men to make swords, knives, shields, breastplates, in fabrications of mirrors, in the workmanship of bracelets, ornaments, in the use of paint, in the beautifying of the eyebrows, the use of stones of every valuable and select kind, and all sorts of dyes, so that the world became altered. Impiety increased, fornication multiplied, and they transgressed and corrupted all their ways. Right? So we're reading that about the transgression and corruption of all their ways, right? For among the children of Cain there was much robbery, murder, and sin. And Lamech pitied him and said, truly, he when alone might be overpowered by men of this place. So Lamech arose and took a bow he had kept ever since he was a youth. Ere he became blind, and he took a large arrow and smoothed stones in a sling which he had, and went to the field with the young shepherd, and placed himself behind the cattle, whilst the young shepherd watched the cattle. Thus did Lamech many days. Meanwhile, Cain, ever since God had cast him off and had cursed him with trembling and terror, could neither settle nor find rest in any place, but wandered from place to place. In his wandering, he came to Lamech's wives and asked them about him. They said to him, "He is in the field with the cattle." Then Cain went to look for him. And as he came into the field, the young shepherd heard the noise he made and the cattle herding together from before him. Then he said to Lamech, "O my lord, is that a wild beast or a robber?" And Lamech said to him, "Make me understand which way he looks when he comes up." Because remember, Lamech was blind at this time. Then Lamech bent his bow, placed an arrow on it, and fitted a stone in the sling. And when Cain came from the open country, the shepherd said to Lamech, "Shoot, behold, he is coming." Then Lamech shot at Cain with his arrow, hit him in his side, and Lamech struck him with a stone from his sling that fell upon his face and knocked out both his eyes. Then Cain fell at once and died. Then Lamech, the young shepherd, came unto him and found him laying on the ground. And the young shepherd said to him, "It is Cain, our grandfather." So remember what was that we were reading? Is that in Genesis 4? Where it briefly talks about that, but there's no detail. Or was that in Genesis 6? Sorry about this, y'all. I think it was in Genesis 4. I think I'm just going too fast. Right, so let's go into this bloodline really quick, just in case I find it. And Cain knew his wife, and she conceived and bare Enoch, and builded a city, and called the name of the city after the name of his son Enoch. And Enoch was born Irad, right? So this is the third generation. This is 3 generations after Cain. And Irad begot Mehujael, right? This is the 4th generation of after Cain, right? And Mehujael begot Methuselah, right? And Methuselah, Lamech. So Lamech was the 6th generation. Now just to go over that, right? Lamech. And Lamech took unto him 2 wives, which shows that during Lamech's time, there was a lot of women. The making of babies had populated them vastly, right? It says, and Lamech took unto him 2 wives. The name of one was Adah, the name of the other was Zillah. And Adah bare Jabal, the father of such which dwell in tents, of such have cattle. And his brother's name was Jabal, and he was the father of such which handled the harp and organ. And Zillah, she also bare Tubal-Cain, instructor of every artificer in brass and iron, and the sister of Tubal-Cain was Naamah. And Lamech said unto his wives, Adah and Zillah, hear my voice, ye wives of Lamech. Hearken unto my speech, for I have slain a man to my wounding. Right? This is what he was talking about. This is how you get, because you could read this and another person wouldn't be able to give you to understand. Well, when he says, for I have slain a man to my wounding, a young man to my hurt, if Cain shall be avenged 7-fold, truly Lamech shall 70 and 7-fold. So he's like, if Cain killing somebody on accident shall be avenged 7-fold, truly me killing somebody on accident, or not on accident, but it was on accident, right? He's like, so if Cain killed them out of scorn, and he said if something happened to Cain, he shall be avenged 7-fold, and truly Lamech 70 70 and sevenfold. Remember, I said we would go back over that because Lamech slayed Cain and was the sixth generation of Cain, which makes perfect sense how they had learned from the angels. Right? So let's go back to that. All right. And then Lamech and the young shepherd came up to him and found him lying on the ground. And the young shepherd said to him, "It is Cain, our grandfather, whom thou hast killed, O my lord." Then was Lamech sorry for it. And from the bitterness of regret, he clapped his hands together and struck with the flat palm the head of the youth, who fell as dead. So remember, let's go back to that again. See, this is what I be saying. You could just do your research, people. Don't just watch videos, especially that's 5 minutes, and expect to learn everything. The videos I put out, the shorts, most of that I'm hoping people learn from it, but most of it is stuff most of us already know, right? But this stuff right here, you got to do your research for this, right? Let's keep going. It says, "For I have slain a man to my wounding." He was talking about Cain. "And a young man to my hurt." Because he was hurt from killing Cain, he slayed the young man. Also, things that are being backed up in what we're reading right here. And if people don't know, this is from the book, The Forgotten Books of Eden. And it also has the testaments of the 12 tribes. I'm going to go more detailed into this to finish the video, right? It says, "Then Lamech and the young shepherd came to him and found him lying on the ground. And the young shepherd said to him, 'It is Cain, our grandfather, whom thou hast killed, O my lord.' Then was Lamech sorry for it, and with bitterness of his regret, he clapped his hands together and struck with the palm of his flat palm the head of the youth, who fell as if dead. But Lamech thought it was a feint, so he took up a stone and smote him and smashed his head until he died." So he was like, yo, he not even dead, and he was mad for what he did to Cain. All right, let's go to. So this is important. All right, this is important to know because it puts things in the timeline. Because everybody will want to discontinue these books, and then they won't understand the certain things like that particular story in Genesis 4. So let's keep it going. It says, "Then Methuselah stood over his people and fed them in righteousness and innocence, and watched them to see they held no intercourse with the children of Cain. He also continued in the cave of treasures, praying and ministering before the body of our father Adam, asking God for mercy on him and on his people, until he was 870 years old, when he fell sick. Then all his children gathered unto him to see him and to ask for his blessing on them. Ere he left this world. Then Methuselah rose and sat on his bed, his tears streaming down his face, and he called his eldest son Jared, who came to him. He then kissed his face and said unto him, O Jared, my son, I adjure thee by him who made heaven and earth, to watch over thy people and feed them in righteousness and in innocence, and not let one of them go down from this holy mountain to the children of Cain, lest he perish with them. Because they were already filled with bloodshed and everything. And this is by Jared's time. So this is around the same time as Lamech. The angels had already went down there and made it with women. So the point that they made in the video that we're debunking was totally not valid once again. It says, Hear, O my son, hereafter. Hereafter there shall come a great destruction upon this earth on account of them, Cain's children. God will be angry with the world and will destroy them with waters. But I also know that thy children will not hearken to thee, and that they will go down from this mountain and hold intercourse with the children of Cain. And that they shall perish with them. It says, O my son, teach them and watch over them, that no guilt attach to thee on their account. So do the best you can. Therefore, if they mess up, no guilt is going to be on you because you think you could have done more to teach them the exact things that they should know what to do, right? It says, Mahalalel said moreover to his son Jared, when I die, embalm my body and lay it in a cave of treasures by the bodies of my fathers. Then stand thou by my body and pray to God, and take care of them, and fulfill thy ministry before them, until thou enterest into rest thyself. So until you go to sleep yourself, or what we would say in modern times, until you die yourself, right? And Mahalalel then blessed all his children, and then lay down on his bed and entered into his rest like his father. When Jared saw that his father Mahalalel was dead, he wept and sorrowed and embraced and kissed the hands and his feet, and so did all his children. And his children embalmed him carefully and laid him by the bodies of his fathers. Then they arose and mourned for him 40 days. All right, so there, if we keep going, after the children of Jared, you get when the children of Jared did go down the mountain, and as there was a path down it, but once they went down that mountain, they could no longer find their way back up, right? So if y'all would like me to go more into this book, let me know. I would not mind going more into this book. Like I say, oh yeah, I wanted to get that really quick before I shut it down. Let's get it. The Lost Books of Eden, the Forgotten Books of Eden, the Index, the Sacred Archive. I just want to show you all the books here, because remember the Testament of the 12 tribes that the Bible speaks of. So that's what's so crazy. These this packet of books, right, is part of the testament of the 12 patriarchs and the 12 tribes, which the Bible actually speaks of them leaving testaments, right? And it's so cool to read what our forefathers were saying, right? The fourth book of Maccabees, the letter to Artesia, the Odes of Solomon, the Psalms of Solomon, right? The story of Akkar, the book of the secrets of Enoch, and then the first book of Adam and Eve and the second book of Adam and Eve. So there's a lot of books that are in this. I know that's a lot of reading, and most people they rather hear people talk about this instead of actually doing the research, which is sad. But I advise you to read as many of these as possible. At least read the first book of Adam and Eve and the second book of Adam and Eve, so you could get what Adam lost. Because that's the closest understanding that you can understand besides Second Baruch about what we would receive, is to know what Adam lost. Like in Baruch, when it talks about being beings of light, right? And the other people getting the bodies that are harsher bodies built for the destruction and punishment that they'll receive for eternity. And the people on God's side receiving the body as beings of light, splendor of light, the beauty and splendor of anything that we imagine. It's important to go into some of these older books so you could get a better grasp. Like Baruch talks about it a little bit, and then the books we just went into talk about it a little bit as well. On that note, I thank y'all for tuning in. Hopefully y'all watched to the end of the video. This was an information-packed video, and sincerely, get in the comments and let me know. This is for you. This is for anybody who was battling with the rather Book of Enoch was legit or not. And I don't even want to have to go into the calendar, because I feel like that's the craziest argument, because it's impossible to keep the Sabbath in the calendar without the Book of Enoch. So it's like you want to take something and leave something out instead of putting it all together and understanding it. It's kind of, and I'm not talking to you sincerely. I'm talking about the person who made the video. It's kind of like some of the brews who was like, I believe in the Old Testament, but I don't believe in the New Testament. Instead of gaining the understanding, when Christ said himself, he did not come to destroy the law or the prophets, right? And that the law and the prophets, the law still stood until heaven and earth had passed away, right? So it's the understanding that Christ wouldn't come into change, but he came to show people how to keep it, because how they were keeping it wasn't right. So it's not just about picking up the law, it's about the understanding of how we keep the law the right way, right? And it's the same with this. People were so quick to throw off the book of Enoch and some of these other books, but then they would lack knowledge. Not a person would be able to tell you why that said that in Genesis 4, what we went through, why Lamech was saying that quote without going into what we went to today, right? So that's why these things are important. Don't discount the books. Let me know if y'all want me to go deeper into that book over something else, maybe the beginning of Adam and Eve and kind of what they lost in the kingdom and everything. Just let me know in the comments. We will. On that note, I just want to say Thawada for watching the video. Kaulal Haya by Shimon Shire, Rabawat Kodash, which is all praises to the Most High in the name of his Son and in the Holy Spirit, right? And on that note, I just want to say Barakatah, bless everybody. Barakatah, that's what that means. Barakatah Thawada, which is thank you. Barakatah Kwame Asherallah. Barakatah, y'all. Peace out until next time. Peace.